Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a good day. Thanks for joining us. The Browns out practicing in Berea. Final day of training camp as they'll hop on a plane and head to Seattle tomorrow. It was also the final day open to the public. Deshaun Watson got some early work in. He was limited in practice, finds Jerry Jeudy on that pass route. We'll talk a little bit more about Watson later. Cooper back on the field doing some drills. Jack Conklin, good sign, walking through. Jameis Winston in 11-on-11s finds Jordan Akins. Winston finds Elijah Moore this time. As we mentioned, final day of training camp as some of the running backs going through the drill. After, Kevin Stefanski was asked about Deshaun Watson playing in Seattle.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into Seattle plans just yet. Deshaun was a little sore. I decided to just hold back a little bit with him, but not overly concerned.
When you say a little sore, I mean his arm soreness, or?
Yeah, I'd say general arm soreness, but again, he practiced. I held him back. He could have gone. He's feeling fine.
With that, let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So, Lance, obviously, you throw a lot. You're coming back. It's not terribly concerning. Let's wait and see. It's not great news by any stretch of the imagination. You'd rather not hear it, but before people start panicking, he was sore, and they decided to make sure they erred on the side of caution.
I'll say this: it's always a concern, regardless of what it is. But I will be honest with you: it's not. If Stefanski said it's not a big deal, then it's not a big deal. And here's why: there is camp soreness, and being down there watching most of training camp. He has not missed any throws. He has not been out of any drills for the most part, but he's coming back off a major injury. He's coming back off a major injury to that arm, and I don't think he's been held back in terms of what he's doing. So having a little bit of camp soreness coming back from that, I don't think it's a big deal. And if it was, I think they would tell you.
Yeah, without question. Now, there were some concerning things. Pierre Strong, running back, trying to make the team, left via an ambulance after the practice. Kevin Stefanski said it was a rib injury. No details yet. Was transported by ambulance, obviously, to the hospital for further testing. The other thing that happened, we saw Jack Conklin walking through, went through a workout with an athletic trainer. That's the first time. Scott Petrek, Browns beat reporter. You can check in Brown Zone on the show all the time. First time he's seen that. So, again, trending in the right direction. We'll see Amari Cooper, as we showed you, back at practice. Denzel Ward not practicing, and David Njoku not practicing as well. Now, Ward, Kevin Stefanski did also confirm that he did have a concussion. So those are always a concern, and Denzel has had multiple. I think that's his fifth since like 2018. It's something in that neighborhood. I don't know the exact number. Anytime you're talking concussions with a guy, that concerns me. I've had children who have had severe concussions from playing rugby. It's a scary thing.
Well, actually, I tweeted out that I saw that happen in practice, and what it was, him and Elijah Moore were in one-on-ones, and he kind of rolled up and actually hit his head on backwards on the ground. I saw him get up. I thought he was a little bit off, and it turned out he was. But yeah, it's very concerning because this is his fifth concussion, and it gets to the point where how much is enough. Excuse me. So I don't know how severe it is or what the precautions are. I know in the NFL it's such a big deal now. They won't let him back out there until he's right. But that's got to be concerning for him and the Browns, knowing that they want him around. He's one of the cornerstones of what they're doing. Good to see Jack Conklin out there. You worry about him not having any. You don't worry about Jack Conklin's toughness. I love watching him play in practice, but you do worry about the lack of reps and the lack of work that he's had. And then being, asked to do certain things at tackle without a lot of practice, that will be very interesting. Some of those other guys, like I said, Watson and some of the other guys, Pierre Strong, I'm sure he went to the hospital because of rib injury. Nothing worse than a rib injury. I've had some rib injuries in my life. That lack of breathing, you feel like you're panicked. So I'm sure that's why he went there. If I had to guess, I think things will be okay. But they got to practice and they got to get going here. It's time is short.
Yeah, again, they're done with training camp. They hop on a plane tomorrow. They fly to Seattle. They have an off day Friday, probably some walkthroughs, and then they play late Saturday. This is from Dog Pound Daily. 5 Browns with soaring stock heading into the preseason finale. Number 1 on their list, Devin Bush, the linebacker. Number 2, quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Number 3, Jamari Thrash. Number 4, Khalif Halisi. Number 5, Chris Williams. Those are all the guys that have been really standouts, I think, during the preseason. I think Devin Bush, I think my initial thought was Jim Schwartz knows how he wants to use him. As I've seen the preseason, I'm going to say I'm right. I think they know exactly what they're going to ask him to do and what he doesn't do well, and they're not going to ask him to do those things.
Well, looking at those 5 guys, they have all played really, really well in practice, too. Now, you talk about Devin Bush. The thing I like about Devin Bush, he's a downhill guy. Again, you and I have talked about it. Schwartz is going to get him downhill, limit him in coverage, allow him to play free, get Dalvin Thompson and those guys in front of him, take up those guys, and let him run free and make tackles and be free like he was as a rookie. And I agree. DTR has been very good in practice. I think DTR has made a great jump cognitively. He's a great athlete. And that athleticism is now matching his ability to read what he sees. Very smart kid, and I see he's been very good in camp. All 4 quarterbacks have been very good in camp. Thrash is another guy, made some plays. He's also been a guy who makes some plays in practice. That's going to be very interesting in that receiver room when you talk about Woods, Thrash, Bell. I've liked Crochet as well. I think Amarian Brown's been good. So they got some choices to make there, and they got some decisions to make, especially with 11 personnel. Are they going to keep 7 maybe? And then, obviously it's going to be hard for a corner to make this team. And it's going to be very hard for Chris Williams, even though he's been very good. That defensive line room is so stacked. There's going to be some guys who don't make that team that are very good. So, yeah, all guys, I agree. All guys who've been good in camp, practice hard, and have built their resume, whether they're with the Browns or not.
Yeah, Halasi is going to be a guy that I think is going to be tough to get back on the practice squad if that's the route they choose to go. And I think he'd have the same trouble with Miles Harden just because he was so well thought of, even though the Browns got him in the 7th round. This is kind of interesting as well. We realize, you and I have talked about it, all 4 of these quarterbacks are guys that we think can play in the NFL. Browns are reportedly open to trading Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that according to the Draft Network. And we've heard that. I've heard other people say they really want to trade Huntley. Here's where I would go with that. I think Huntley probably can help you more this year. Thompson-Robinson may have a higher ceiling. And I say may. And I think both of them are really good. But Huntley's a freakishly good athlete. We have seen firsthand what he has done to a defense with his legs. There is a role for a guy like that on any team. Short yardage, red zone, whatever you want to say. If you get, all things being equal, if you can get the same trade value for both of them, I'd probably err towards holding on to the guy that can help you potentially this year if you think you might need it.
Well, yeah, and they're in the win now situation, right? Windows in the NFL are short, and windows in the NFL don't last very long. And I'll be honest with you, I really like both of those guys. I think DTR has really improved, like I said, his ability to read and see what he is seeing from a defense and kind of anticipate where he's going to go. He's thrown with great accuracy, great anticipation during camp. Huntley's always been very good to me. So, excuse me, I think what Huntley gives you is he gives you a possible red zone guy going back to Dorsey with Allen, running the ball in the red zone. So either guy could be up for trade. It'd be interesting who it is.
Yeah, and it may come down to which of the guys do the teams trying to acquire them value more, which of them will give you more for them. Let me ask you this, and I'm curious to your answer to this, Lance. If you had to win a game this year, both Winston and Watson are unable to go, who are you more comfortable with, Tyler Huntley or Dorian Thompson-Robinson?
Well, I'm actually going to go, excuse me, I'm going to go with Huntley just because of his experience and his ability to run. He runs a little bit heavier than DTR. But I'd be okay with both of them, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Huntley, has won significant games for the Ravens before. Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out other side of the break. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Film breakdown coming up as well. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, dough, Skrilla, chips, bread, and mo. 2, 5, 10, and 20. 30 big ones, games aplenty. Cheddar, butter, loot, and scratch. Find the letters, make a match, cause there's many words for cash, no doubt, and many ways to play cash word. Check 'em out. Cash word from Ohio, lottery. It's game time, yo. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions and prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This goes out to all my Cleveland fans. I have never seen so much negativity, whether it's Stefanski this, Deshaun that. It's just so negative. Coming off a playoff season where we faced all this adversity, we still made the playoffs. Since we've been back, this is the best front office we've had. They've shown you by what they've put on the field. You guys have got to let that negative energy go. Guys, Cleveland, Browns, Dogtown, be positive. Thank you, guys. Go Dogtown. Woo!
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Lance, there is a certain segment of the fan base that is kind of bitching about play calling, bitching about Watson, wants Baker back. You know what? I think the front office has done a nice job. Just the perspective you have to have. These guys took over a franchise that was 1-31 and hadn't really won since they've been back, for lack of a better term, for lack of a better comparison. They've made the playoffs 2 of their 4 years. The coaches won 2 Coach of the Years. In spite of what everybody wants to say about that, that's facts. It's a well-run organization at this point. Just smile and say, thank you. And we're having.
It seems like Jimmy has gotten out of the way and let these guys, Jimmy D, and let these guys do what they do, and they've done a great job. Now, I will say this, and I always believe this as a head coach and being a part of football with my dad and being an offensive coordinator for 18 years or 22 years and being with my dad for 18 years. Expectation is a good thing, and with expectation comes expectations. And what I mean by that is that I always wanted to be in a program, and just like the Browns are now, where it matters, and people have expectations and expect them to win. There's nothing worse than being part of a program where no one cares. People in Cleveland care, and sometimes that you look at that negativity, it's just because they're passionate, and that's a good thing. These guys, these coaches will tell you the same thing. You don't want to be a part of a team or an organization that doesn't have high expectations and want to win right now. And that's where the Browns are. And that's why everybody gets so negative when the issues happen. If you think about Deshaun Watson today, he didn't throw because his arm's sore, but it's a much bigger deal than it needs to be. And that's okay because there's expectations. And that's how we always want it as coaches. You want to have expectations. You want people to have expectations for you.
Yeah, the phrase that I remember is pressure is a privilege. And it was a young lady named Margot Geer who won a bunch of NCAA championships in swimming. She's from Ohio and won a bunch of state championships as well. And it's true, without question. This is every team's biggest mistake of the 2024 offseason, according to Total Pro Sports. And I couldn't disagree with this more. For the Browns, they say trading for Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy is more of a gamble than a guaranteed upgrade with Amari Cooper already in the fold. Younger receivers like Elijah Moore and David Bell showing promise. The Browns didn't need to take a flyer on Jeudy. They didn't need to, but if he's available and you can get him for what they got him for, you take it 100 times out of 100 times.
Well, yeah, and you got to look at what the Browns think of with his potential. And again, I've said this before, receivers are looked at 3 levels. The ability to release off the line of scrimmage, the ability to catch point, and run after catch. And Jerry Jeudy does it at a high level. Now, he has not always done it at a high level on Sundays, and I think that's what the Browns are expecting him to do. But he is a severely talented kid who has a high upside. He's just got to be in the right system. And he's in a system now because the Browns are well run, that he's going to maximize his potential. Could it be a mistake? Absolutely. But I do not fault them at all for going out and get a guy who could potentially be a number one receiver.
All right, this is from NFL.com. One potential first-time Pro Bowler for every NFL team. For the Browns, they go with the kicker, Dustin Hopkins. Hopkins was nearly flawless until he injured his hamstring on Christmas Eve, nailed 33 of 36 field goal attempts, missed just 2 of 26 point afters. A lot of variance in outcomes for kickers, but the 33-year-old has been around long enough to continue his play from 2023. And let's add to that, Lance, Cleveland is not an easy place to kick, and he didn't really have any trouble.
Well, yeah, the best thing about a kicker, right, was you don't talk about it because you expect them to make all the extra points. You expect them to make those field goals inside 50. Outside of 50 is always a crapshoot, but he's been very consistent there as well. So I agree with them signing him. I think that's a position. It's a highly underrated position, and it's only a position you talk about when things go poorly. And the Browns have been there where it's not gone well, and it hurts you. And in those close games, if you look in the NFL, every game in the NFL, not everyone, but so many games come down to a field goal. That guy's got to be consistent, and they got to have a guy they can trust. And I think Hopkins is that guy.
All right, this is from ESPN. It's ranking the top NFL divisions for 2024. Dan Graziano. These are ranked combined. FPI ranking is 8.6 overall for the AFC North. It is the top division. Ravens 4.8, third in the NFL. Bengals 3.3, seventh. Browns 0.5, 14th. Steelers at an even 0, 17th. Dan Graziano, I'm actually higher on the Browns than the FPI, which ranks them as the second best defense in the league, but the 23rd best offense. Maybe it's offseason optimism. I think the changes they're making on offense are going to be significant and beneficial for Deshaun Watson, even though their annual offensive tackle crisis is happening early this year. It's only been annual the last 2 years, but yeah. And again, 23rd seems awfully low for Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, potentially Nick Chubb, even Dante Foreman, David Njoku. 23rd is bottom 8 in the league? Bottom 9?
Well, as we know, everything in the NFL is based on the quarterback, right? So it comes down to Deshaun Watson playing like the person they thought he was when they went out and got him. So I think that's a floating kind of scale, and that's the worst on the scale it could be. But when you have all that talent and you have really good coaching and you have a really good defense, again, I always have people tell me they want Deshaun to be 2020 Deshaun. I don't, because that was a really, really bad football team that he was on in Houston. I want Deshaun Watson to be the guy the Browns need him to be in certain situations. And there are going to be times it's getting him into the right run play. And there's going to be times where he has to carry the load, whatever it is. But he also has a really good kicker, and he has, I think, the best defense with the additions of depth, the best defense in the NFL with the best coordinator in the NFL defensively. So I think that's low. I think they can definitely he'll improve that, but he's got to prove it. He's got to go out and play at a high level when the time comes.
Yeah, I mean, the way I describe it, you want your quarterback to be the guy that the opposition goes, oh, man, we left too much time for him, and he's got the football. You know, we're in trouble. That's what you want from Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and that kind of goes down to, like I said, the ability to make the plays when he has to. So, you know, in Houston, he had to throw the ball every time just to keep them in the game. Now, with the Browns, he might throw for 180 yards, but he needs a big play in the fourth quarter, or he needs a big run, or he needs a big third down conversion, or whatever that may be. But it doesn't mean he has to put up gaudy stats. It means, like you said, do we trust Deshaun Watson getting the ball as an offense, or whatever that may be? And that's the next step for him with Cleveland. Getting the ball when it counts and going down and getting points.
Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside. When we return, film analysis, video breakdown of what the Browns can do to help out the tackles. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So Browns tackles are beat up. Jedrick Wills hasn't played at all. Jack Conklin hasn't played at all. 3 of them went down last week. Jermaine Ifedi will be able to play left tackle this week. Lance, when you look at it, Kevin Stefanski, Ken Dorsey, they've said this week they're going to do some game plans. They installed first and second down earlier in the week, third down today. What are some of the things you do to help out tackles that might be a little overmatched or just need some help, maybe?
Well, the way you look at this is that when you go against Micah Parsons and Lawrence, is that these are elite guys. Whether you had Wills in there, Conklin, Jones, you have to help on these game wreckers, right? And Micah Parsons, he's a game wrecker. So a couple things they got to do. First of all, they got to run the ball at him, and they got to make him play the run. They cannot allow an opposing defensive end, no matter who it is, just to only rush the passer. They have to make that defensive end worry about the run, getting blocked down, getting reads, counters, etc. They have to do those things. They have to use a short passing game if necessary. They have to make sure that they're chipping with the tight ends or running backs out of the backfield. They want to make sure they change the launch point, which I think for me has always been the most important, where you're not setting up at 5, 9, or 12 yards. You are constantly moving that pocket, inside, outside the pocket, on the run, semi-roll, just doing different things. So that defensive end, who is really good, doesn't know where you're going to be on every single snap. And that's where Watson's feet can really help him.
All right, so we'll take a look at, and you mentioned some of the things we're going to take a look at visually. So this one, run at the rushers. We got some clips here. What do you see, and what are you talking about here?
Well, first one, you got David Njoku, who's with the guys inside and going to block down. Then you can see Njoku up top, block down on the defensive end. So that defensive end has to worry about the outside guy. Is he going for a route, or is he coming to block me? Then you're going to see running the ball right at that hard rusher, draw route, a draw scheme. And then finally you get a counter inside where they're going to push the pile. And basically what you're saying to these defensive ends is, if you just get upfield, we're going to kick you out. If you just get upfield, we're going to run draws on you. So you make these people understand that they have to read their keys. And if you don't do that, what these guys do, the Myles Garretts of the world, they will just pin their ears back and rush. Now they're not worried about the run. However, if you break some big runs because that defensive end is not doing his job because he wants to rush the passer only, now you got a problem for the defense. So the Browns, first thing they got to do without question is run the ball and run at those rushers.
So in effect, you're slowing down the guys and making sure that they can't focus on getting to the quarterback. The second one, and you said this one is one you thought was important, changing the launch point. So take us through these.
So you can see in camp here, right, just a little play action, setting up about 8 to 10 yards, very classical kind of move, right? Well, he can be there, but he can't be here all the time. Then you're going to see a semi-roll from Flacco last year where it's still a set pass, but he's moving outside the pocket. And what you get out of these two things is you get an example of 2 different launch points. Well, there's a bunch of launch points. And the Browns have to continuously move Watson off the point, right, or off his mark. So he's not a sitting duck for defensive ends, Micah Parsons, for example, or Lawrence, for example. So they just got to keep him on the move, change it up, run the ball. So it starts with running the ball, then change that launch point, kind of frustrates those speed rushing DNs.
And there you see the long pass to Jerome Ford. All right, third point that we talked about a little bit, chip or help on the ends. Take us through these and what you see, what you mean here.
Well, there's a couple things, right? So you're going to see Njoku catch the ball. He's going to run with the ball really, really well after he catches it. The Jets will actually twist here, but if you see where he lines up, you're going to see it again here. So now you get the ability to chip on those ends, and you're going to see Teller come inside out. So what it does is you can always help on the defensive end, and then you can check it down, get rid of the ball fast. Now, if you're a right guard, if you see Teller here at the right guard, he can let Posick work by himself and then go help Hudson. And you can see he helps Hudson physically. And there's a number of things you can do. First of all, never leave those guys unblocked or a one-on-one. Try to chip them. Try to use the guard to get out there if you can, if the front allows it. So there's a bunch of different things, but try not to leave those tackles who are unexperienced or just because they're going against elite guys. Regardless of who plays against Micah Parsons, you better have a plan. Regardless if everybody's healthy, you're still going to have to chip on them every time it's a true pass set.
The other thing that you see with the play with Njoku is he's wide open. And think about David Njoku and how good he is after the catch with yak yardage. He chips and runs out, and nobody's by him. The Browns should say thank you every time a defense does that.
Well, yeah, and then you get rid of the ball. Like you said, you get rid of the ball quicker. You're taking less hits. Those chips frustrate the defensive ends. The guards working. They're so good inside. Those guards can help if they get the front, and everybody's a multiple front now. So there's going to be some times they can help as well as chip. But never leave Micah Parsons. Always frustrate him. Run the ball at him. Change the launch point. Run to him. Run away from him. Don't let him know where you're going to be, and that'll be very successful for the Browns.
So the other thing, use the quick game to stay out of obvious passing situations.
Well, again, another launch point, right? So you're going to see just a little slant here. You're going to see during camp they worked a lot of this is just a hitch to Sed Tillman early in camp. Just the things that, Watson throws a great ball here. What I mean by the quick game is maybe use the quick game also as an extended run if you're not running the ball very well. You don't want to be second 10. Second 10 is a pass down. Second and 10 now allows these elite defensive ends to pin their ears back and go because they know that you have to throw the football. So you're going to see Watson catch the ball. He's going to get rid of it quickly. This is something that I think the Browns could do on first down. So if you think about the progression of what you got here, you can make sure that you chip on them if it's a pass down. Try to get yards on first down so you have a run-pass option type on second and third. You want to make sure that you change the launch points. You want to make sure that you run the ball at them so they have to read their keys. It's a mixed bag of things. You have to do all of them to keep those defensive ends honest.
Isn't the short game, the quick passing game, that kind of seems to be one of the biggest changes? You spread them out so you can do that. People have to give guys cushions when you're spread out like that, and you get quick passes, easy yards.
Well, yeah, so two things. One is they're spreading everybody out. They're tagging a lot of passes with the run. So if they don't get the run look they want because teams try to stop the run, they can throw those little hitch routes, those little slants. So yeah, a lot to that, but it just gives you easy yards, right? The ability to be 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5 is so big for the Browns on offense.
That's when people were talking about why the Browns offense has evolved. They're trying to stay out of obvious pass situations, especially, you run the ball on first down, so you get a yard. Now it's second down. Now they know you're going to throw it. It's incomplete. Now it's 3rd and long. They're trying to stay out of 3rd and longs. That's the whole idea behind getting easy yardage.
Well, and what it does for me is that your game plan does this. At times when you call the play, your guy's going to lose, and that's football. But what you don't want is you don't want to run a bad play into a bad look or a bad play with more defenders out there that you can block. So that's kind of where the Browns are at. This offense has evolved where if they get a run look and they like it on first down, then run the ball. If a guy gets beat, then a guy gets beat. That's not a bad call. That's a bad play, and those happen. But now with the evolution, now they can get into good plays, and hopefully they can execute when they call those plays.
And that kind of is the change in the offense, allowing Deshaun Watson to kind of change some things based on the looks at the line of scrimmage, correct?
Correct. And you get the spread sets, you get the motion, you get the shifts. All those things are going to create a picture for Deshaun Watson where he can get into the play, whether it be pass or run, that is going to be successful. And with that defense, it might be a run play, and that's okay too. That's being an elite quarterback as well, getting into a right run play. If they're in dime or nickel and they're saying you're not going to throw the ball, then the Browns need to run it down their throat a little bit. And then you get regular personnel, and now you throw the ball. Or if they put 8 in the box and you want to run it, make sure you have a tag RPO with it so you can get those guys in space, because if everybody's stopping the run, then there won't be guys to tackle in space. There's a whole rhyme and reason to it, But now with the Browns evolving to where they are at, now they should be able to get into a good play. The Browns should never be in a bad play numbers anymore. They can get beat once in a while, and they will. Everybody does. But they should be in a good play based on what they see.
So in the past couple of years, Kevin Stefanski's offense has been timing and rhythm. They're kind of going a little bit away. Now there still will be elements of that. It's not like they completely did away with it, but there are going to be elements that are, this is what the defense is doing, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're going to do.
Well, yeah, and I just if you just think about their run game in 13 personnel and 12 personnel that they've done the last couple of years, they're going to run the ball no matter what they see. Now they're not doing that. Now they want to block 5 and 6 man boxes, and if teams don't honor that, they're going to throw a quick game out there and get the ball in space. Same the other way. Teams are going to go nickel and dime, right? Now with these spread sets and these motions and these movements and these shifts and these things that create a clear picture for the quarterback, it's all going to allow Deshaun Watson to get into a good play. And that's really what you want as an offense coordinator. You want a play that gives yourself a chance. And once again, that has nothing to do with getting beat. Sometimes the other guy is better. But you don't want to make, give you an example. Micah Parsons needs to be doubled on every true pass set. If you don't, then you can't complain because, the tackle got beat. Now, if he beats a double team, okay, some guys can do that. That's how talented they are. But they should always be in a good play for what they're doing now on offense.
The other thing, Deshaun Watson, one of his strengths is processing the defense quickly. That's something, that's something that the Browns quarterbacks before Deshaun Watson were not good at.
Well, yeah. So now, and the thing that's great about that is sometimes when you're in 12 and 13 personnel, it's hard they can disguise coverage pretty good. When you spread it out, the defense has got to show its numbers, right? They got to show what they're doing. And that's what this spread is going to allow them to do. Still run the ball well, but now they're going to see what they're seeing, especially in coverage. And that Deshaun Watson knows what he's seeing. He'll deliver the football accurately. That's why I think Deshaun Watson's going to have a big year because they are in more spread sets, because of the ability to see that picture clearly before the ball is snapped.
Lance Reisland, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out, cleveland.com. Plain dealer, always really good and insightful film analysis, video breakdown. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan and the Cleveland Browns on SI. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, dough, Skrilla, chips, bread and mo. 2, 5, 10, and 20. 30 big ones, games aplenty. Cheddar, butter, lewd and scratch. Find the letters, make a match, cause there's many words for cash, no doubt, and many ways to play a cash word. Check 'em out. Cash word from Ohio, lottery. It's game time, yo. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions and prizes, don't you know?
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
These injuries are not looking good. The off season has not been good. At the end of last season, I was thinking how this is a better time to be a Texans fan than a Browns fan. But now, I'm hoping that at the end of this season, we're not thinking it's a better time to be a Broncos fan than a Browns fan. But if Deshaun Watson shows up with the smallest, most undersized shoulder pads in the whole league again this year, count on it.
Wow, we were talking about positivity and the power of optimism. The injuries are concerning. I would think the offseason has actually been pretty good. I think they've upgraded the defense. I think Jordan Hicks was a good addition. I think Quentin Jefferson was a good addition. We'll see how Michael Hall plays out relative to what the NFL does with him. I think Miles Harden can play in the league. I think Bookie Watson can play in the league. I think Thrash can play in the league. I think their draft was, given the fact that, they didn't have a first-round pick, I think their draft was pretty good. They got guys that can play. The injuries to the tackles are concerning. I'm not sure what's going on with Jedrick Wills. My personal belief is they probably thought he was going to be back by now, but he's not ready to go. If a guy's not ready to go due to injury, can't be out there. So the concerning part is the injuries are all to the tackles, and your quarterback is coming back from an injury. So those are without question concerns. Deshaun Watson's shoulder pad size, he's played with those shoulder pads his entire life. You got to be able to throw the ball. You got to be comfortable. You got to feel like, the equipment is part of you. So you can't ask a guy to do something that he's not comfortable doing. Am I concerned about his sore arm? Yeah. If they say it's not a big deal, we'll believe them. You'd rather have it happen now, a couple of weeks before the games count, than in the middle where you don't have time to rest. That you got to go right back at it, and you got another game that counts in 7 days. So that's kind of interesting. The four Browns that are on the roster bubble before the preseason finale. Michael Woods is number one. Khalif Halassi. So Michael Woods. And again, we know that wide receivers are going to be Cooper Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman. Woods has been a guy that's kind of fought through injuries. They keep bringing him back. He keeps flashing. So he's got to keep an eye on. Khalif Halassi, cornerback, number two. And again, they have really good corners. You go Emerson, Newsome, Denzel Ward. Those guys are as good as anyone. Miles Harden can play in the slot. Halassi, when they've played him, has been good. He's shown up on special teams when given the opportunity. The question is, if Newsome is unable to go, does that open up a spot for Halassi to stay? Again, they have depth. But Halassi is a guy that I think can play in the league. It'll be interesting to see. Siaki Ika, this is another one that's he has not looked great in the first two preseason games. He's looked kind of rough. I don't want to be negative, but he hadn't looked like he's worthy of being a third-round pick. Run defense hasn't been what it was supposed to be. Hasn't been able to anchor and stop people. Really hasn't developed the pass rushing moves that you would hope he would. So Ika is a guy that I don't know if there's a way that he can find his way onto the final 53 or even the practice squad. He might be a guy that they move on from. That defensive line room, especially defensive tackles, is extremely deep. Fourth one here is Nyheim Hines. And Hines, he might be on the PUP list. I don't think there's I think when he is healthy, he becomes your pass receiving threat. He is a guy who has made his stock in the NFL. He has proven to be an NFL player. Has returned a couple of kickoffs for touchdowns, and he's a really good. He might be one of the better receiving running backs. Question is he healthy? He's coming off the knee injury similar to the ACL, and hadn't been able to get on the back on the field. Again, he's a guy much like Jedrick Wills, I think they expected him to be back sooner. Let's welcome in Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan, as well as Cleveland Browns on SI. Spencer, we're going through the bubble guys that you had in your article: Woods, Halasi, Ika, and Hines. Hines is a guy that I think they find a way to keep him, just because I think he has an elite skill in kickoff and also pass receiving.
Yeah, and I do think when push comes to shove, he probably does make the roster, or at least starts the season similarly to maybe Nick Chubb on that PUP list, and then gets activated 4 weeks in, something like that. And what's interesting, today, I think that him as a bubble guy kind of took a turn because Pierre Strong left practice with a rib injury of some sort, was put in an ambulance and taken off the premises. So the reason I kind of talked about or wrote about Nyheim Hines in that article or mentioned him was because I thought Pierre Strong's had such a good camp, and he kind of does a lot of the stuff that Hines is expected to kind of do for this team. But I do think, and as I kind of said in the first sentence on him specifically, I think ultimately he makes the team, especially if this Pierre Strong injury is serious. He's obviously a great kick returner. Bubba Ventrone has talked a lot about that. But it has been kind of interesting, to your point, that he said back in May, I went back and looked this up. He said back in May when he talked that he was trending towards, or that the plan was that he'd be ready by the start of training camp, or August 1st, I think was kind of the timeline he put on it. And as it turned out, he still has yet to practice. So you just never know with those guys who haven't practiced with the team throughout all of training camp if they're going to be ready or not.
Halasi's a guy, if he's not on the final 53, and again, Newsome injury may open a spot for him, I don't think there's any way he makes it to practice squad. I think the Browns kind of plucked him off the Chiefs practice squad last year, and I think he's shown enough. He's an NFL cornerback.
Agreed. Yeah, and I thought today, since Denzel Ward's been out for a little over a week now, with what Kevin Stefanski confirmed today was a concussion, he's been that first guy up, sort of filling in for Ward since then. So I think he seems like he's pretty much a lock at this point, just given what we've seen, and we'll see if anything changes with the last preseason game. But I think he probably makes it, to your point, like probably not a guy that you can get to the practice squad. I think Miles Harden, the 7th round rookie that they drafted, is a guy that's on that in this conversation as well, because he's had a really strong camp. And the other part of this too is, what do things look like with Greg Newsome? We saw him doing some stuff off to the side today and kind of going through some footwork stuff. And that was interesting because if he's ready to go, maybe he's part of the 53 rather than having to start on either the PUP list or the IR and designated for return. And Kevin Stefanski did say at the start of camp that there's a chance both him and Dalvin Tomlinson are ready to go for the start of the season. So yeah, that cornerback room though, super, super deep group. And there's been a lot of standouts, I think, throughout camp in the preseason. So they'll have some tough decisions to make, but I think Halasi has safely cemented himself on that list now.
Yeah, if you're looking for an area where they potentially could trade guys, that I would point to that, and the D tackle room too as well. You wrote an article, and obviously they need some offensive tackles, or at least healthy offensive tackles. You wrote about a guy named Dennis Daly who was cut by the Cardinals. Take us through that and what intrigues you about him.
Yeah, more so, I mean, I wrote that over the weekend. We know what happened in the Vikings game. You had 3 different reserve tackles go down with various injuries, which was obviously not ideal for the Browns. And Daly's a guy who I'm not going to sit here and try to preach to Browns fans that he's some massive upgrade at the position or some standout player. Because if you look at his PFF grades over the last couple of years, they're not, top of the list or anything like that. But, I mean, at this point, I think the Browns are probably a little bit desperate in terms of trying to add players at that position. We don't know what the future holds right now for Jedrick Wills. He's kind of a big mystery right now. And I'm hoping he kind of gets going here these next couple of weeks, and that allows him to be ready for the start of the season. But the fact that he hasn't practiced to this point, the fact that Kevin Stefanski remains very vague about where he's at and when he'll be ready, I think that's all very concerning. So I think for me, it was more so about adding a body, adding a guy that's played left tackle. He's also versatile enough because he's bounced around. He's played left tackle. He's played guard. He's done a little bit of everything, where that's a kind of a valuable piece that you can have in case somebody else gets hurt, because you can kind of fill in the cracks with a guy like that. But again, I don't know that he's, some standout that's going to blow everybody away if he gets out there on the field and people are going to be loving his play. But for where they're at right now at the left tackle position and with the unknowns of Jedrick Wills, I think it kind of made some sense when I saw that he got released by the Cardinals over the weekend.
Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan and a writer for Cleveland Browns on SI, and I'm going to take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan, also Cleveland Browns on SI. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, greetings. This is TJ from Tampa calling. I think I heard you state that you didn't understand the narrative that Joe Flacco outplayed Watson last season. I had to call in and try to give a little truth or reason today. I know you love mentioning Flacco's interceptions on the show, which is fair. However, when you consider he came off the recliner and fell out of the sky to start at quarterback for this team, he didn't know the playbook. He didn't know the players. He was playing with third and fourth string O-linemen, no Nick Chubb. I'm willing to give the guy a little bit of a break, okay, with some of the interceptions. I can't help but think if this was Watson, we'd sure be in line making this an excuse for his play. Also, I feel Watson's 7-4 record is more reflective of the stellar defense and our coaching rather than his average quarterback play. Dave, I love you. I'm going to respectfully ask that you reconsider your take on Joe Flacco. He had this offense looking good, as it has in many, many years. All right, go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Spencer, there's truth to what he's saying, without question. Flacco threw, I think it's over 300 yards a game, so I will give you that. But if you're going to say that Watson's wins are the result of the defense, you'd have to say the same thing about Flacco. So Flacco, in the games he started, they lost to the Rams. They beat Trevor Lawrence, who was playing on a bum foot. They beat the Bears with Justin Fields. They beat the Texans with Case Keenum, and they beat the Jets with Trevor Siemian. So I think my point wasn't that Flacco didn't play well. My point was I think Watson, if he was quarterback, would have beat those teams as well. So that was the point I was making.
Yeah, listen, I think that's a fair point. I understand what the caller's saying, though, and I think part of the Flacco story is just the fact that he did stuff that we'd never seen a Browns quarterback do, right? I think I think it was three straight games, or maybe it was 4 straight games where he threw for over 300 yards, and that had never been done in Browns franchise history.
Yeah.
So when somebody does something like that, obviously it gets people excited, and Browns fans hold on to that, and they see a guy who's doing some good stuff. And I'm not saying he didn't play well, but if you really look at the advanced numbers, to your point, Dave, it wasn't like he was, up there with the great quarterbacks of the league. He was making some mistakes. He was throwing the interceptions, and you kind of get that with Joe Flacco. He's a little bit of a risk taker. But I think it was more so just that fans were seeing something they hadn't ever really seen before.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's not to discredit him.
No.
Yeah, that's not to discredit him. I mean, he was great. That ride that Browns fans got out of him was fun. But I agree with you. Like, if that Ravens game that we keep going back to was the turning the corner, if you will, for Deshaun, and he was kind of starting to play well again, I can't think of a reason why, if that was gonna be what we saw from him moving forward, that the Browns wouldn't have also won, a number of those games with him under center as well.
So here's kind of what I was getting at with Flacco. This team is a dominant defense. I don't think, and the caller said that. The one thing you can't get from quarterbacks with a dominant defense is turnovers. You can't do it. You can't put your dominant facet of your team in a hole, and turnovers do that. And there were too many interceptions. Now, it was a great story. He played well. My point was they didn't beat the great teams, and they didn't really play well. Nobody played well in the playoff game. So, but it was a great story. Leave it at that is where I'm at with it. It was great. It was a great story. Yeah. We'll forever have fun with, he came off the couch and took him to the playoffs. But that's kind of where I would leave it with it.
Yeah, and I do think that playoff game sort of became a microcosm of the, I want to say luck, but just, it was kind of the story of the season, right? Like the defense had kind of gotten you to that point. And Flacco, he had his role in that, but everything kind of came undone at once in that game. Like, and you notice that the first game the defense played really, really poorly across the board. Then the issues with Flacco started coming out, right? Because he threw the pick six. He had a second interception in that game. And so it was like, okay, well, without the support of the defense, this Flacco, the aura of Flacco kind of lost its luster a little bit, if that makes sense. So I agree with you. Like the defense definitely played a role in all that. And, it was kind of this symbiotic relationship. They both kind of needed each other. But yeah, I think in terms of like getting better quarterback play, you're hoping that Watson can return to what he showed you in the second half of that Ravens game. And if that's the case, pairing him with that dominant defense, the hope is if the defense does have a bad game like they did in Houston last year, Deshaun's the type of quarterback that can dig you out of that and doesn't make quite as many mistakes.
So you wrote an article about could the Browns explore Dorian Thompson and Robinson trade before Week 1? Take us through that, and the follow-up that I'm going to have for you, is there that big of a difference between Tyler Huntley, Dorian Thompson, Robinson?
Yeah, so it all kind of stems from the report. I know The Athletic put it out earlier in the week, just about how the Browns are at least open to the option of trading Dorian Thompson-Robinson, which a year ago would have been crazy to hear because we know how they felt about him last year, so much so that they, traded Josh Dobbs to make him the number 2 quarterback behind Deshaun Watson. But yeah, so it sounds like it's at least on the table. What I don't know that there's like a massive difference between the two. I would say the biggest differences are that I think NFL teams, if you're looking around considering trading him, they kind of know what Tyler Huntley's ceiling is at this point. He's been a career backup, did some nice things for the Ravens. He started games, but you kind of know what you're getting. DTR, I think, gives that aura of, well, there might be another level to his game, right? Like there's some unknown with him, an untapped potential, if you will. So there might be a little bit more value there if you're trying to maybe get a draft pick back in return than maybe what you would get from a trading Tyler Huntley. And I also think the other big difference is just their contracts. Like DTR is on a rookie deal. You have control of him for 3 more years. And so that matters to people if you're trying to maybe develop that guy. And it might even matter to the Browns enough where they're like, well, we actually don't want to trade him. But I just find it interesting that they're sort of pivoting off this stance of how much they love DTR. I've kind of been operating under the premise that of the two, DTR would probably win that job because like you said, I don't know there's a massive difference between the two right now, but because of the other factors, the contract, the fact that he was a draft pick, there's more value there. There's an untapped potential. I think those reasons are why I kind of felt like he ends up being on this roster. But they do have to sort of make a decision here in the next week about which of those guys is on and which of those guys is off. I don't think either can be sort of slipped through waivers and get back to the practice squad. So you got to decide which one you're doing. And I guess if, the theory that was out there was if they are trying to add at left tackle via the trade market, maybe DTR is the more valuable asset that you can trade for something like that. So that's kind of where it all stems from. But I still sit here today, 6 days out from the deadline to cut the roster down to 53 players. I still think that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is on that final iteration of the roster come next Tuesday.
So let me ask you this. There's a game you have to win this year, and we'll make it really ridiculous. A game you have to win this year to get into the playoffs. You can either start Tyler Huntley or you can start Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Who are you starting?
I love this question. Ooh.
I have my answer.
I think I would say DTR just because I think he's looked, and again, I'm going off of like last year was last year. I understand my hope is that he continues to grow. I think you've seen some of that in the preseason. I don't want to use the preseason as my reasoning because it's the preseason.
Right.
We know you can't really divulge too much from any of these games, especially when the team's kind of telling you that they don't matter either. But I think I'd say DTR because I do think he's improved. And I think his improvements from year one when you're a rookie, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you kind of get thrust into a situation week 4 when Deshaun gets hurt. It's out of the blue, and you're sort of thrown to the wolves a little bit there. I think like we're going to see steady progress from him to the point where I would trust him in that spot. But I'm guessing you're going to go Huntley here.
Yeah, I'd go Huntley. And the reason is he's seen a little bit more regular season game plan, and he's a threat with his legs. I still wouldn't be surprised if there's a short yardage package, a goal line package, a red zone package that they have that has Tyler Huntley. Because remember, Ken Dorsey was doing some things with Josh Allen. That's kind of what I go back to when I think about Tyler Huntley. And again, I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson is an NFL quarterback. I am in no way saying that he's not. I just don't know that if push, you're in win now mode if you're the Browns. And I think I would keep the guy that I would be more comfortable having to turn to Huntley. And again, I don't think there's a wrong answer. I disagree with you, but I understand where you're coming from as well. Spencer German and I can step aside, take one more time out, and we'll come back talking Browns. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Cash, moolah, greenbacks, dough, Skrilla, chips, bread, and mo. 2, 5, 10, and 20. 30 big ones, games aplenty. Cheddar, butter, loot, and scratch. Find the letters, make a match, cause there's many words for cash, no doubt, and many ways to play a cash word. Check 'em out. Cash word from Ohio, lottery. It's game time, yo. Cash word, it's fun to go with millions and prizes, don't you know?
We continue talking Browns with Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan and the Cleveland Browns on SI. Spencer, you wrote an article, 4 key questions heading into the final week of the preseason for the Browns. Number 1, will Jedrick Wills be ready in time for week 1? Number 2, which quarterback is winning the battle for the QB number 3? We talked a little bit about that. Number 3, with injuries at tackle, should Deshaun Watson play Saturday? How long do you expect him to play if he does? Had a sore shoulder that held him back a little bit today. And number 4, is it time to totally revamp NFL preseason? Start with Wills. I said earlier, I think they're surprised that Wills hasn't been practicing. I can't believe that if they thought Wills and Conklin were going to miss all of training camp, that they wouldn't have gone out and gotten somebody.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a concern at this point. It's a red flag at this point. And, I mean, I think it's telling that DeJuan Jones and Jedrick Wills had the exact same injury, surgery around the same time. One of them is out there kind of getting their body into game shape while playing through sort of their rehab or their process of getting back on the field. Because listen, DeJuan Jones hasn't looked great. Like, he's had some bad moments, and you can tell sometimes he favors the knee or whatever, and he's just kind of getting his feet back underneath him. But he's at least trying to play through it and get himself ready. Will's not being out there at this point is definitely a concern because, I mean, all he had, I don't want to say all he had, it still is, it's a surgery, but he had a knee scope. It's it's not like Chubb where the torn ACL, torn everything. This is different. So, yeah, I think it's concerning, and I have my doubts about whether or not he's going to be ready for week 1. even though there's still 2 weeks to go before the season starts, and that's still a decent amount of time. I don't necessarily think we see him out there.
I'm assuming you think DTR wins I think you said you thought DTR would find a way onto it. So I'm with you that I can certainly understand that. It all comes down to who do you trust more, or it may be who does somebody give you more for. If you're comfortable with both of them, I think that's what happened with DTR and Josh Dobbs last year. They're like, yeah, we're fine with playing the rookie if we need to, and somebody wanted Josh Dobbs. So if somebody comes and offers you something that you view as a valuable asset for DTR or Tyler Huntley, the other one's probably your third quarterback. Man, if Watson's arm is tired, camp arm, whatever you want to say, and your tackle, I don't know that I said this yesterday and I go back to it even more. I think you go to Deshaun Watson and you ask him, do you need to play to be ready for week 1? And if the answer is no, I'm good, you don't put him out there.
This is such a dilemma for me, Dave, because I've been banging the drum for like get Deshaun Watson as many reps as you can, and I still think that's important. Like every rep counts, especially for him, as he's trying to get himself ramped up for the season. But I also, in recent days, I kind of found myself saying, is I don't know, maybe let's just say 15 reps max is what he gets, maybe like 2 series, maybe a 3rd series. Is that going to be the difference between him hitting the ground running, playing great football like the second half of that Ravens game last year, and him just maybe looking like he did week 1 last year? And I just don't think 15 reps in that setting is going to make that much of a difference. So I guess I put it in Stefanski's court. If he decides he's not ready, or he doesn't want to put him out there and risk it, I get that, because you're trying to get him back from the shoulder injury, and the last thing you need is him to get hurt again. I would like to see it, and I do think from a fan perspective, fans would like to see it, because of anything else, the fans are the ones who are going to look at those reps and be like, try to take anything away from him and be like, well, he looked good, now I feel good about it. He looked bad, now I feel bad about it. More so than I think even the coaching staff will or Deshaun will. I'm just kind of reserved to the fact that I think he and the offense will probably get off to a slow start again this year. And I think those first couple games, it's going to be about the defense kind of keeping them in it and then just finding ways to win. And then hopefully, similar to last year, by like week 3, week 4, Deshaun can kind of hit the ground running and he'll be ready to go. But I don't think 15 reps in the 3rd preseason game changes that.
No, I'm with you. And again, I get it. The Browns fans have not had a lot to watch this preseason. It's been a little rough. Relative to totally revamping the NFL preseason, I think there are teams like the Browns that would, let's just do joint practices. But I do think there are some teams that still value preseason games. It's very interesting. There are 2 camps on that. But I think once they go to 18 games, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they go to all joint practices and maybe 1 preseason game.
Yeah, and that was kind of the model I laid out in the piece, was maybe you just have 1 preseason game that's like it's dress rehearsal for everybody, right? Like the team to kind of get used to going to the stadium on a Sunday, and stadium staff and whatever, and everyone kind of gets like one little go around of figuring it all out. And then the rest of training camp, you just focus on the joint practices. And for me, that all just stems from, I asked Kevin Stefanski, I asked Deshaun Watson, I asked other players just about, do you feel you get the same amount or more out of joint practices as you do in a preseason game? And the consensus was yes. So if the players are telling you this, if the coaches are telling you this, I have to believe there's some truth to the joint practices being just as valuable. And maybe you stream one of those games on TV to make up the ad revenue that you lose from the preseason games. I don't know how that would all work, but they'd figure it out because of the NFL, and they always do. But yeah, I just think what we've seen, as you mentioned, Dave, like Browns fans have had to watch some real duds of games these last 2 weeks. And I just don't necessarily see the point in doing this year after year when the teams are kind of telling you like, yeah, we don't even care about these games. We just want to get people to this regular season healthy.
Well, even more importantly, you keep getting guys hurt. You have more guys hurt in the preseason games than the joint practices. So yeah, I'm with you. Spencer German, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Spencer.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk again down the line.
Sounds good. Spencer German, make sure you check him out. 92.3 The Fan. He also writes for the Cleveland Browns on SI. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.